Just a bit about this afternoon. Each candidate behind me is going to have 1 minute to come up here and tell you a bit about themselves and introduce themselves. And then we'll come over to yourselves, where we'll come round and you'll have the opportunity to ask questions. We'll take one question at a time, and each candidate will come up. We're going to start with candidate number 6, and then we're going to work out, no, sorry, we're not. We're going to start with number 3 for the first question, and then go round to 6, 9, and 12, so that we start at different points for the questions for that. And each candidate will come up here and have a minute to give you their answer for their question. Obviously, the questions are targeted at all the candidates. But if you have an individual question for a certain candidate, you can ask that at the end of the event, and candidates will be around if you wish to ask them a question individually. Before we start, we've just got a little announcement to make on behalf of one of the candidates, who will have 3 minutes to talk as the opening speech. And Laura, do you want to come up and just read that out?
So just before we begin, candidate Ant Lewis has asked for me to say a few words on his behalf, which all the other candidates are more than happy for me to do. So as you may be aware, Ant has aphasia, which is a speech and language disorder caused by a serious stroke 10 years ago. Ant has taken a full part in this senatorial campaign, but his difficulties with language mean that the traditional hustings format of questions without notice is not practical for him, so he will not be answering questions tonight. Aphasia is a condition that affects communication, but not ability. He will be responding to questions online on his Facebook page, and he will also be holding a number of surgeries which are better formats for his particular disability. Ant has asked me to thank you for your understanding.
So you've now met Laurel. Laurel will be co-chairing with me as we go through that. So we'll be sat down there ringing the bell, and there we are, and there's the bell for that. So we'll get started. So we'll start with candidate number 1, and then they'll take it in turns for their minute to do that. Have we got a stopwatch ready? Thank you very much.
Is it working?
We can hear you.
It is. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Ferguson. I suspect many of you want to know that the prospect of university funding for those of you who are interested will remain. That has been promised. But what about those who are not interested in an academic career? We need to look after you as well. We need technical courses, possibly combined with essential academic courses, either at Helier or at schools. And I'd like to see agricultural courses available at Howard Davis Farm, which is what it was designed for, not a hideout for civil servants. But that's what your parents and you have already told us. You tell us we don't listen to you. But what are you interested in? What do you want? We are all approachable. Our phone numbers are in the book and the Estates Assembly website, and we can be contacted online and through social media. We are probably still on Facebook while you're on Snapchat and Instagram, but we are trying. In return, if it can be done, we will tell you. And also, if it can't be done, don't just grumble, speak to us.
Hello there. You're the generation that's going to see the end of government. Nobel Prize-winning economist Friedrich Hayek says that it's the right of every single individual to be able to make their own money. This right was taken away from us by government and shared with the banks, which is why we're in the mess we're in, why we have periodic collapses like we did 10 years ago, and one just around the corner, and why no one can seem to fix it. While government has control over the money supply, it has control over you. However, that control has been returned back to you by two little things called the internet and blockchain technology. Now, I'm not talking specifically about Bitcoin, but the technology that allows anyone and everyone to create their own cryptocurrency and provide their own value to the world marketplace. You're now free to pursue whatever you want without asking for government or even the majority to agree with you first. You can just do whatever you think is correct. So if you want more renewable energy, you can go online, connect with like-minded people, crowdsource it, crowdfund it, do it. The only question remaining is, what do you want to do first?
Hi, I'm KRISTINA Moore. Thank you for being here tonight. It's important because you are the future and you'll have to live with the consequences of the decisions that are made over the next 4 years. I want to make sure that those decisions benefit you and serve your interests. That's why I have a plan for strengthening our economy, protecting our environment and building our community. I want Jersey to be a place where you choose to keep studying, make your career, and see yourself having an exciting future. We have a unique and precious environment that must be protected. If elected, I'll fight for the island to gain plastic-free status within 2 years. We have a good economy, but I want to see it strengthen and respond to the challenges of modern life so that you can have fulfilling careers. We can do this by embracing fintech opportunities, building our digital skills and developing our creative industries. There's clearly a lot of potential in this room tonight. I want to help you unlock your potential and see you reach for the stars. That's why I want more for Jersey, and I hope you do too. Thank you.
Good evening all, I'm TRACEY VALLOIS. At the very core of my vision for the island is the need to invest in education, skills and lifelong learning. It is vitally important that we revitalise the role of Highlands College and coordinate or even partner with industries to develop, expand and provide further opportunity. Learning is a constant, not just when we are at school, but in everyday life and even more so for our rapidly changing world. The Mental Health Quality Report revealed that we need to be highly concerned about the well-being of our population and ensure care and support is valued as much as the paper in our wallets. The States Assembly needs to step up and take action by listening to those who know and understand the very difficulties facing everyday lives. I'm tenacious, a team player, and have challenged and continue to challenge the very stigmas that have plagued me for much of my life. I know what it is to listen, act, and be an advocate for change, and that is why I ask that you consider me for one of your votes on the 16th of May. Thank you.
You have never seen a candidate like me before. I am different. I have a different campaign and a different voice, but different is what Jersey needs. My stroke has left me disabled, but it has given me courage, determination and new insight. I will represent those who, like me, don't have a voice. Not just the disabled but everyone who feels that today's politicians don't speak for them. What is the future for Jersey? Where do we want to go? My focus includes the environment, equality, and community. We need to improve the community of Jersey. We need to improve the environment. There can be no silos. We need to share more information. Equality. I will be a champion in the states for equality in our society. I want everyone, disabled and able-bodied, treated the same. I feel a stigma. I want to remove the barriers in society. We need more support. I believe mental health provision must be higher up the political agenda. More understanding and reduced stigma. Where we see inequality and stigma in Jersey, it should be fought. We need less old boys club. I believe that the most marginalized and downtrodden members of our society have something to contribute. From the inmate at Lemoy to the homeless man in the parade, we all have insights and abilities to help make Jersey a better place to live. The different communities in Jersey, everyone has skills and talents. Everyone. Change. I support all sporting activities, such as the proposals for a new scatter park. They need a new facility that works for them, and I think we should be listening to them about where they want it, what it should look like, and how it should be run. I will support grants for some or all of tuition fees for students heading to university. Everyone should be able to go if that is the right path for them. 16 voting. Frustration voiced about this apathy. Nothing changes. General lack of trust. Politics is important. It should not be remote. More education about issues in schools. Not branded politics but debates about how we want our community to work together. Jersey Youth Service. An important part to play. We need to address apathy and lack of trust. Listen. Listen. You may ask, how will I be able to represent you? With modern technology, I can. But for more information, please visit my website, www.antluis.com. Thank you.
Good afternoon to you all. My name is Stevie Ocean. Now, I'm not going to go into details about myself, but I'm going to details of what I want to do for you. First of all, I'd like to see Highlands College made into a state-of-the-art university so you don't have to go away. I also like to see states loans and bursaries reintroduced so you have got the backing that you need for education, which is extremely important. Now, I will say one thing about me. I made history. Back in 2016, unfortunately, when I stood in the by-election, there was confusion over the ballot paper. Now, what actually happened as such, that's better. What actually happened as such was there was confusion, I lost votes, and I couldn't do what I wanted to do. So when I decided to stand, I made a promise that I would do something about it. I got a government department to represent me in front of the law officers. I also added credence by giving them a copy of my equity card. When the law officer saw my equity card, he sort of turned round and was quite surprised because he said, this guy's definitely not Peter Maxine. I have a £10 million personal liability insurance on it. So it was granted, and I'm the first person in the history of this island outside the States Assembly to change the law. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Gerard BAUDAINS. Unfortunately, it's not possible to explain the workings of ministerial government and the problems surrounding it in the time allowed. I would, however, remind you that the candidates before you are seeking election to the States Assembly, not to the government, meaning questions along the lines as, if you are elected, would you do such and such, are pointless because only the government can deliver such things, and they won't be elected until June the 7th. I say that because I wouldn't like you to be fooled the way the students were in the UK when the UK Labour Party promised them free university fees, if I recall correctly. Because it's easy to promise things using other people's money, especially when you know you'll never have to deliver on that. Welcome to the murky world of politics.
Hi, I'm Steve Pallett. I'm standing for Senator because our island faces a number of challenges that need to be addressed if we're going to have a successful future. These include pressures from inward migration, lack of truly affordable housing, and skills gaps in our economy. How best to address these are included in my manifesto, which has been delivered to every household in the island, and I hope you have. I've campaigned strongly for the need for a new active Jersey strategy, by both encouraging people of all ages to become more active and increasing access to amenities. We'll aim to reduce the level of chronic illness such as diabetes and heart disease, as well as improving our mental well-being. Such a strategy will also alleviate the pressure and reduce the cost of a health service for you, the future taxpayer. We need to elect positive candidates who will work together to deliver results, and I'm willing to work with anybody to get the job done, and that includes a skate park. If you consider me to have the energy, leadership and experience to be one of your senators, then I hope you'll consider me for one of your very valuable votes on 16th of May. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is GINO RISOLI. Lived in St Helier for 30 years. I've got 2 boys at the universities of Bristol and Reading. Now, you're all students learning, and learning, the more you focus on a subject, the more you absorb and understand those subjects. Well, I've studied human behavior for 25 years, and that's why I have the edge. I've studied politics, religions, cultures, the sciences, all to one end, human behavior. And I can tell you here, you won't learn much from politicians. Politicians are approximately 40 years behind the curve of knowledge. So there's one piece of advice I can give to all of you. When you make your choices in life, and that is your careers as well, focus on what you enjoy, not the markets. Every decision you make, focus on what gives you joy, and you won't go astray. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Frank Luce, and I'm a born-again politician. Potential Ireland voters see the present system of government as bad. They want nothing to do with it. That was an opinion held by me. However, the present Assembly have horrified me to such an extent that I am now before you asking for your vote. I want to have a strong and significant input into two long-standing issues, the appalling hospital saga and the need for an independent inquiry into the lifeboat power and personality struggle the present government has avoided. To face with and in the new Assembly the looming priorities of Brexit and population control, and ensure that the agriculture and tourism are better supported to form a holy trinity of business sectors, along with the financial sector. I want to work for a listening states chamber that puts Irelanders first. For that I need your confidence, support and vote. For your ballot paper, the name is Luce, Frank Luce. At the moment, of every 100 electorate in the island that can vote, only 30 to 40% do. 60% don't. Apathy is the name of the game. Don't let that happen to you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ian Gorst. Jersey's strength is our people, especially our young people. I want you to stay here, to see your future here, if that's your choice. I want you to get the best education, and that's why during this election I'm proposing a university for Jersey. I want you to have a career and not just a job. And that's why I will ensure that our economy remains strong so that businesses invest. And I want you to make your home here. That's why I want to take action, making it easier for you to own your own home one day. There is nothing young people in Jersey can't achieve. And so over the next 4 years, I want to create a climate where you can make those achievements right here. I stand for hope for your future so that you don't have to risk yours. And I would appreciate one of your votes on the 16th of May. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm John Lafondre. In brief, I'm a chartered accountant. I've worked 20 years in finance, and I've been deputy in the States for 12 and a half years. I've also done a number of community projects as well, and that's all on the back of my leaflet. All of you here are our island's future, and I firmly believe it's our primary responsibility to secure that future for you, and that means making careful and prudent financial decisions now to ensure we have sustainable funds in the long term, and that's my priority. I'm not ignoring the many other issues we face as well: education, apprenticeships, yes, university fees, environment, mental health, population, affordable housing, and in general, being able to support people when the going gets tough. But the money has to work first. Internationally, I promote and represent Jersey on 2 overseas parliamentary bodies, including to senior UK politicians. It's a very short time we've been given. If you don't get to ask a question of us, please come and have a chat afterwards. But I hope you consider me for one of your 8 votes, and thank you.
Hello, I'm LYNDON Farnham. Thanks for coming along today. I've been Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture for the last 3.5 years, and I have been working to deliver strong and sustainable growth across all sectors of our economy. Maintaining a strong economy is vital because it creates the wealth to help those in our community who find themselves in need and allow society to develop for the benefit of everyone. 3 of my key priorities are to ensure a permanent funding solution for a new higher education student grant scheme, to continue to develop all aspects of our economy, to create jobs and career opportunities for our young people, and to make housing more affordable by supporting the introduction of Help to Buy and deposit loan schemes so young people can buy their first home. If elected, I will continue to work on behalf of all islanders, young and old, to continue to deliver a strong economy and develop a fairer and more inclusive society. Don't let this election be another Brexit. Don't let the older generations decide your future. Mobilise your friends and come out and vote, and I would be honoured to receive one of them next Wednesday. Thanks very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Simon BRÉE. I'm currently one of the deputies for St Clement. Now, as we all know, there are major issues facing our island, which will have a direct impact on every one of us. Now, unless we tackle these now, our quality of life and our island will change forever. Population growth is probably the most talked about issue at the moment, but if it's left unchecked and uncontrolled, it will have serious consequences on our quality of life. It's going to affect education, housing, the environment, and the health services, to name just some. Long-term sustainable university funding needs to be enshrined in law to ensure that everyone, irrespective of their financial circumstances, has the opportunity to pursue the career of their choice. So it is time, I believe, for a change of political leadership. It is time for a government that listens to all the people, not just big business. And it is time for your voice to be heard. And your vote is your voice. But if you do not vote, nothing will change. I would be honoured to receive one of your votes. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. To give you and others the best future in this island, our political leadership must change dramatically. It needs to address an ageing population and to improve education, healthcare, and the management of immigration radically. It also needs to avoid increasing costs of living and housing and the burden of more taxes driving you off the island. As a former financial lawyer and leadership trainer, I'm equipped to address complex problems using teamwork and my transferable skills. I'm aiming to work for you in seeking an efficient use by this island's next government of our limited resources, removing obstacles to prosperity and opportunity, eliminating the waste of public money, while better supporting our community, natural environment and special identity. My online manifesto at www.votemos.je explains how. Please vote for me as Senator on the 16th of May to help deliver the change we all need. Thank you.
Evening, everyone. I'm Sam MEZEC, and I'm standing in this election because I want to work to make this a fairer island and transform our democracy into one which works in the interests of ordinary islanders. I first stood for election at the age of 23 because I was fed up of witnessing election after election where candidates make all sorts of promises to win your votes, but when the election is over, just return to business as usual. Jersey can't afford business as usual any longer. For the last decade, wages have stagnated, the cost of housing has made home ownership a pipe dream for too many, and worst of all, levels of poverty in Jersey are now worse than the UK. Successive generations of Jersey politicians have failed Jersey's young people. They've failed to provide affordable homes and invest in our education system. Many young people now aspire to leave the island because of this. If you elect me, I promise to work to give young people the voice they deserve in the States, to ensure that we make this an island where you can all have a prosperous future. Reform Jersey has a full manifesto outlining our vision for an island which works for everyone. If you want to make Jersey a fairer island, please give us your votes on the 16th of May. Thank you very much.
Hello, young people of Jersey. You have the biggest, most exciting opportunity of a lifetime on your doorstep. It's financial technology, or fintech as it's known as. A new financial market that is in the last 5 years has grown from very little to a market cap of $400 billion. Where there is a record-keeping or payment system, fintech will change the world. I propose Jersey should build a fintech university. This would overcome future skills shortages by training our youth for the industry and retraining our banking labour force. And they should be trained in distributed ledger technology, digital asset management, public blockchain development, consortium blockchain development, and private blockchain development. The university will train you and in addition sell webinar and correspondence courses and degrees worldwide, making Jersey a world-class leader in fintech. Please vote Gordon George Troy for Senator. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so that's all 17 candidates that you've heard from. And what we're going to do now is open up for questions. So this is your opportunity, if you've got questions that you would like to ask the candidates. As I said, we'll start at seat number 3 with the first question. So it'll be KRISTINA, you're up to the first question. So has anyone got any questions? You've got one there, okay. We've got a microphone coming down very quickly, so you'll have an opportunity to ask that. Hang on.
Hello.
How will you better help equip schools to provide solutions for mental health issues?
Okay.
Thank you for the question. Mental health is absolutely key to everybody's well-being, of course, and it concerns me greatly that our children and adolescent mental health service hasn't received the help that it's needed in the past few years, and it struggles to keep up with the demand. I would like to see a greater investment in that service going forward, and particularly also in the Jersey Talking Therapies and the YES project, which provide early intervention opportunities. I know your question started with schools, and I think, yes, we do need to have a counselling service within schools and properly funded opportunities there. But we need a central service that can actually coordinate everything and ensure that it reaches everybody who needs help. Because crisis, I believe, in a life is something that we all should avoid. And too often problems are left until a person reaches a crisis and then the damage is done, and it is much harder to pick up the pieces. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your question. There are, of course, issues with mental health workers in the island, whether employing them or keeping them retained in the island at the moment. But how I would see it is in terms of a coordination between the charities and the schools as well. Mind Jersey do a fantastic piece of work, and I think there could be better coordination, but I think we could also provide skills work for people to upskill in terms of mental health work, so that people in schools feel more comfortable with going to those particular people and speaking to them and being able to find a route through and have that constant support. Because as I understand mental health issues at the moment, there's a lapse in certain support areas for people. So I would look at investing in that particular area, assisting people with skills, providing further assistance to teachers in the schools, so that there is a continuance of support rather than the lapse that you find in some areas.
Right, I can hear you now. Can you hear me okay? Right, mental health. Now, what I'm going to suggest here is web conferencing with relevant departments in the States, so everybody is aware of exactly what's going on. It's all very well and good sort of implementing different things, but for you to know how this works is very, very important indeed. I've suggested this with lots of other things as well, where web conferencing is an advantage. If you just go into one school at a time, cost effectiveness, when you can increase it to 3 or 4 at a time, and you can have literally conferences between the schools as well as the relevant departments. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, I have to refer you back to my opening remarks where, as I said, only a minister can give you answers to that sort of question. We don't know who in fact, the health minister would be the person to give you the answer. We don't know who that will be yet. Unfortunately, the candidates haven't yet declared which ministry they will be going for, apart from 2 of them who have said they were going for Chief Minister. So unless one of the candidates comes forward and declares that he will be looking for the Health Ministry, he will be the only person who can answer your question. Thank you.
There's a couple of areas I think we can help. Certainly areas that I've got some interest in. One is I've been trying to campaign for getting the Daily Mile introduced into primary schools, and I think it also can be put into secondaries of school. I think it's an opportunity during the day where children can have an opportunity to exercise, but I think not only do they exercise, I think it's an opportunity to have a break in the day where there's opportunities to have a rest from learning, and I think that will improve mental health actually during the school day. The other area I think where I've got some experience and some knowledge is around the youth service. The youth service in Jersey provides not only a great opportunity for children and young adults to get together of an evening, but I think it's also an opportunity where I think some of those that are involved with the users can identify problems and actually speak to young people and talk through some of the issues that they're having during their early teenage and later teenage years. And I think that's really important that young people get the opportunity to speak to people. Thank you.
Well, that question is a question that I could stand here and talk to you for at least an hour. Now, I'll take it in a two-prong approach. An individual that's suffering from mental health, I mean, what that basically is your thoughts are not helping you. So it's a question of understanding how the mind and the body works. And there's an absolute science there. It's actually in books that are 40 and 50 years old, but you're not taught it. But if I get into office, it will be part of your curriculum. You don't have to suffer mental health. If you had the knowledge, you could cope with the stresses that you get in the teenage years. Now, the other half of the equation is this. The problem with politics today is, my knowledge of 25 years studying this, if you put an unfair policy into society, you simply separate and confuse people. And that is where you are confused, because the people that lead you are confusing you. Unfair policy is highly damaging.
I don't know the organisation and routine and the system that the Health Service and the Education Department have got currently with schools. And if you don't know, maybe you should do. Communication is the key. Individual schools should have a central person who could be a counsellor, and that can be referred back to various bodies within the education or the health department. If you don't know the problem, or if you don't know how to handle the problem, then really we should make it a point that you are aware of how you go about issues with fellow students that have mental problems. So really, it's back to communication and back to the States of Jersey to provide you with the answers. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. It's an excellent question. Some of the work that the youth service are doing around the Yes Project and Link already have waiting lists for people just to go and have a confidential chat. The youth service is going to need more money in order to support the extension of that service. Talking therapies already have an unacceptable waiting list, as does CAMS. So CAMS, by the end of this month, are going to be moving into a new building. That's really important, but it's not enough. Trained counsellors are being trained and rolled out in schools, but not enough young people know about them or necessarily feel able to access them. That's why throughout this election campaign and earlier this week, I've made 4 new commitments. One of those commitments is that if you elect me, within 4 months, I'll come back with an overhaul of not only child but adult mental health services, which will reduce waiting lists and increase interventions. We are moving children's services out of health into education. There's an argument right now about whether CAMS should go with it. CAMS absolutely should go with it, so it's totally joined up access to that service. It's not good enough and we've got to do better. Thank you.
Yes, we actually had a circular sent to us by the Parents Carers Forum, I think it is, and the points under education were things like special education needs coordinators don't get enough support, and many have to carry out that role as well as teaching, so they're not focused on just one specific responsibility. They called for more and easier access to mental health support, counselling for children and staff as needed in schools, more and easier access to behavioural support is needed for both schools and parents, and earlier intervention. All those tick all the right boxes in terms of where we should be doing more. What I would say is politicians, we deal with both constituents and families who have issues around mental health matters. And so other comments I've received that there's a disconnect between CAMS and potentially then switching over to adult side in terms of communication. It seems to be less about the person, more about giving you some pills sometimes. And basically we cannot afford to wait months to get an appointment. How do you do that? Mind Jersey want to present to the States of Jersey, I understand. I think you've got to get a group of people who've had direct experience and get that message across the States members to help improve things. I hope that answers the question in a minute. Thanks.
To help schools, we've got to simply provide more resources. As Ian said, the waiting times for the child and adolescent mental health services are completely unacceptable. And by not dealing with that, we're letting schools down because they're having to deal with the issues because of lack of resources, and that's having an impact right throughout the network. So it's all about providing more resources. And I also agree with Steve. I think we can help everybody by putting a lot more emphasis on physical activity and encouraging people to be more fit and active. That, well, it certainly helped me with my mental health. I'd keep as fit and as active as I possibly can, especially when you're doing a demanding job. And so I support that as well. But it's all about resources. Thanks.
Excuse me. It's estimated that 1 in 2 people will suffer from mental health issues at some time in their life. So why aren't we investing in mental health in the same way as we invest in physical health? It's really, really important that we take this seriously because everybody will at one time in their life experience or come close to somebody with mental health issues. Many, many years ago, when I was a young man, I suffered from clinical depression. It's a very, very lonely place to be. Schools need to have properly trained staff who are there to act as first point of contact, confidants, so there's somebody you can go and talk to, and also counsellors. Because having mental health issues is a very lonely place. You need support. We, the government, need to put that support in place so that you don't suffer the consequences of nobody listening to you when you have a problem. Thank you.
This is a really important subject to me because I gave up a legal career to work out things about the mind. I paid a lot of money, and at the end, I thought, why aren't people in schools taught this, about how the brain works, about some of the issues that arise, and why aren't they just taught how to learn? There are SEMCOs and ELSAs in some of these schools. Some are full-time, some aren't. I really believe there needs to be more consistency in the emotional support that's being given to students. And if I were a minister, because I might not be, I would change the curriculum because I do believe that that would certainly support people better, in addition to having SEMCOs and ELSAs more consistently to give that support and referrals as need be. And yes, there does need to be more investment in some other support services too. But if I'm not a minister and I am elected, I'm going to badger that minister for the education and they will, until they give up. Thank you.
Thank you for this question. It's one that's close to my heart because of my own family's experience. I think that the basic principle here must be that every single young person who requires the help of a mental health specialist must get that help and must get it quickly. Waiting times for talking therapies and access to counsellors right now are unacceptable, and I think it needs to be a matter of priority for the next government to invest in all of our schools to ensure that there is decent provision in every single one of them. That means spending money, but it's money well spent if it's looking out for the well-being of our young people, and we need to establish a proper 24/7 mental health service provision. But I think more broadly, our education system is too focused on targets and outcomes. Schools should not just be exam factories. They have to be places of learning where young people can thrive, and that means putting the well-being of students above everything.
This government has an appalling track record for child services and the care of our children. And we need to do something about that, and certainly mental health conditions are very, very important. You know, we've got people doing good work now, like talking therapies, mine, Jersey, the youth service, and then charities like Headway that also help. But you young people have all kinds of pressures we didn't. We didn't have social media when we were young. We didn't have 100 channels. We didn't have games where we blow each other up. It's all changed, and we need a coordinated approach from all these charities and services to make sure that our youth is properly looked after where there are mental issues. And that will take time to put together, but it's got to be done because we cannot have failures like this government has had in the past. Thank you very much.
Seems to me there's two parts of this problem. There's the prevention, and I've heard a lot this afternoon about, you know, the care, the counsellors in the schools, the getting rid of the delays in getting appointments, but which goes throughout the whole of the health service. It's not just the mental health services. But what about prevention? Certainly the Greffier introduced all states members to mindfulness, I think to try and, I'm not sure whether it's to make us behave better in the debates or what. But, you know, there are things we can do, I would have thought, to make life as a student a lot more constructive. I mean, why do you need continual testing? You know, it goes on and on and on. I'd scrub the league tables. I'd say, you know, that's really not worth playing with. And then there are all the issues people have mentioned about access to the talking therapies and so on. Those need to be sorted out, but let's look at prevention as well.
There are two things schools can do right this moment. The first thing is remove stigma. If you have a mental health issue, you are not a failure, any more than if you walked out of here and broke your leg. We must get rid of this idea that mental health is some kind of demon that we must be embarrassed about. It's part of our lives, and because mental good health should be part of our lives. The second thing is we should develop more tolerance to diversity. We should accept people who are different from us. The problem of not fitting in has been at the basis of an awful lot of mental health issues because people feel that they are outcast. Why? We are all different. Let's accept that. Let's glory in it. Let's celebrate it because that's our strength.
Okay, we're going to take another question. What we're going to do is we're going to start with number 6 this time. So I think that's Steve Ocean, that's yourself. And questions, oh my God, there's so many, I don't know where to go now. Let's go to I'll go to you there then.
So talking about the new hospital, and that seems to be a main priority. Mental health, no one seems to have really talked about the facilities or the service that mental health provides, maybe for like adults. For example, St Saviour's Hospital, because I feel like that it's not good and needs to be improved. Like the knowledge and the service. What would you do to improve that? Because it's not good.
Okay, let's surprise you. I've actually been into Saviour's for 6 months, a long time ago, suffering from clinical depression, which is the worst form of depression. If it gets hold of you, you've got no possibility of actually living afterwards because you don't know what you're doing. There used to be a system. Now, what it was the CPNs. Now, you were referred to a CPN, and then you were taken to a psychiatrist. And a psychiatrist then would assess you if you were fit or unfit. Now, you don't know if you're fit. I had no idea whatsoever what was going on. And I voluntarily went into St Saviour's for 6 months. And I was on a lot of medication as well. Now, from the point of view of people worrying because you don't know how this creeps up on you, the support system, you're absolutely right, is not the way it used to be, and it should improve. But as far as that's concerned, come and talk to me afterwards if you like. Okay? Thank you very much.
The question for, I know some of us back there was slightly difficult to decipher. I believe it was, how do we address adult mental health? I'm afraid this is where I'll have to refer back again to the fact that had I been allowed 3 minutes introductory speech, I would have been able to explain the difference between the States Assembly and the government, because they are not the same. Only ministers, that's the government, can make the sort of decisions that you seek. Yes, we all have opinions on those things, but if I stood here and said, I will do this or I will do that, I would be deceiving you, because I will not be seeking the ministerial position that could deliver that.
I'm going to look at this from a personal point of view. A couple of times over the last 6 years, I've had issues with not so much mental health, but stress, which I think is a part of mental health. I think it becomes part of this job. I think anybody that's been in government has probably been through periods where they feel under pressure. And I think it's really important that you have somebody to talk to. And I'll be quite honest with you. A couple of times I've gone and seen my GP because I wanted to know and understand myself what was wrong with me. Unfortunately, I got the best advice. Now, I'm quite a strong person and I work my way through that. But for those that aren't so strong, I think it's important that you get the right advice and you get it quickly. And it's pretty clear that currently it takes too long to get the right advice and too long to see the right people. So I think we do need to improve on that. I know there are already in the pipeline plans to have new mental health services up near Overdale. I think that can't come quick enough. But I think it is really important when somebody is suffering from an issue that they get to talk to somebody quickly. In my case, I worked through it a little bit myself, but it's good to have somebody to talk to and just so you know you're not going crazy. Thank you.
mental health, as well as physical health, is an exact science, actually. But I said in my earlier statement not to take this too seriously, because most politicians are 40 years behind the learning curve. Even the professionals in the health service and the mental health services are not up to speed. Now, the professionals in the business, right, they make their money from people being sick, whether it's mentally sick or physically sick. But there is information to prevent both of these, and it takes so long to bring it to the fore. But I will bring it to the fore, because ordinary professionals talk about unpacking your problems. It's not about unpacking them, it's about going forward and not repeating your mistakes. And that is an absolute science. It can be taught.
Mental health and mental health problems occur, and they are a fact of life. And we live in a society where we are now more and more aware of each other, and we're more sensitive to issues like mental health than we were years ago, when people were just locked up in St Saviour's Hospital and called mad. Basically, we've got to go through the process. We have a process, doctors, and then we have counsellors, and we have psychiatrists and psychologists. So really, the first port of call is if there is any adult mental health, and it is a concern, is to refer to an expert. Fortunately, it would appear that in the near future we're going to spend quite a lot of money on the mental health issue. So hopefully, in the future, it'll be an even easier thing to sort out. Thank you very much.
I think other candidates have already said that the plan is to move the facilities from St Saviour's, which, if you've experienced it, which your question indicated, you'll know that it's substandard and it's very dehumanising, just those conditions when the door gets locked and you're cut off from the rest of your family. And actually, I'm sure in years to come, science will show that that has made things worse and made it much more difficult for people to live normally and be more accepting of mental health issues. So prevention is important. Steve's talked about his sports strategy. During the last 4 years, we've brought forward a new mental health law, a new capacity law. We've provided funding for the mental health strategy. I don't know if you've heard of things like the Recovery College, which has now got a Jersey arm here, doing fantastic work in supporting people who've got really difficult issues. Resilience is absolutely important. That mental health strategy needs to be revisited and people need to be made much more aware of it. But again, there is so much more work to do. Thank you.
I think, if I've understood my notes correctly, 1 in 6 adults will have a mental health problem at any one time. 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem at some point in their lifetime. And among people under 65, nearly half of all health is mental illness, which says rather a lot, I think. In terms of the facility, I'm splitting it into two, between the system, if you like, and facilities. In terms of the facilities, I was actually involved in the original feasibility for putting the facilities up at Overdale, and that was back in 2010 when I was last in Treasury. And it's good it's on the agenda now, but it's very frustrating, not having been in Treasury since 2010, that it's taken that long for it even to be back on the agenda. So very clearly, I do commit to moving it further up, because we were doing the detail at the time. In terms of what I'll call the system, in terms of the processes, mental health needs to be dealt with at all levels because it's from postnatal depression to young people to adults. And for example, using young adults as an example, information exchange between CAMS and when I think you go up to Les Chasses is poor. You have to repeat your story all again. Those type of things we need to deal with. That's it in a minute, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Fortunately, I think society, the human race, I think, are suddenly starting to understand more about mental health. When I was younger, I was told, stiff upper lip or pull yourself together, but that's no longer acceptable. My father had Parkinson's, and it was very rapid, the deterioration. And he was at St. Saviour's, and the surroundings weren't very pleasant at all, but that sort of paled into insignificance for him. But he had fantastic care. The people there really looked after him well. So I think, from my point of view, that we have to make sure we have the very best people who understand it and can deal with it and help families. But we also have to invest again in providing proper facilities and making sure that we make life as comfortable as possible. Of course, mental health materialises in many different ways, from something that's not very obvious to something where people have to be detained for their own safety or the safety of the public. But again, I stress we need to provide the appropriate facilities for that. Thank you.
How to improve adult mental health services? Where do you start? They're not fit for purpose at the moment, and the reason is that successive governments have failed to invest in proper mental health facilities. But investing in mental health is not just about buildings. It's about the staff. It's about having experts in their field. Because most of mental health therapy is about talking to people, understanding why you are feeling the way you are. It's not just about buildings. If we just concentrate about the building, we're missing the point completely about how you treat mental health. It is exceptionally important that we deal with this and we deal with it quickly, because at the moment, it is not fit for purpose. Thank you.
It's rubbish that mental health can be taught. My mother was a schizophrenic. She couldn't be taught not to be a schizophrenic. She couldn't have therapy. She needed drugs. So my first thing I'm going to say is that what we really need for the island is, and you mentioned the hospital, I'm thinking about the main hospital, that decision was made without a proper health and healthcare strategy, which should have incorporated mental health. You don't work out policies in silos, or if you do, it doesn't work that well. So that needs to be addressed. And if I'm elected, I will badger the health minister to get one, if it's not me as a minister. And this is really quite important because I was talking to a prison officer, and you've got prisoners with mental conditions who are just going to prison because there isn't an adult secure unit at the moment to support them. So I'm just saying that, yes, there's some real work that's got to be done here, and I will support it.
When you're in politics, every now and then people call you and ask for help with something. And I recently had a phone call from somebody who was in the middle of a severe mental health crisis. He had bipolar disorder. It was 7 o'clock on a Friday evening. So I ran round trying to contact any sort of professional whose phone number I could find to get him the help he required. I looked all over the state's website for the phone numbers for the adult mental health services, and I could not get through to anyone. At the end, I had to call him an ambulance. That was the only option I had left. That is an unacceptable position for anybody in the middle of a mental health crisis to be in. We need to establish a proper 24/7 service so everybody can get the support that they require when they require it, because I dread what might have happened to this person if nobody had answered the phone. There's talk about new facilities at Overdale. That's obviously a good step forward, but I think it would be wrong to house child and adolescent services right next to adult services, and I've spoken to people who've been through the system who tell me that that's not appropriate. But of course, it's not just the facilities, it's also the staff, and that's why I'm committed in my manifesto to supporting on-island mental health nurse training.
Again, this government has failed us. We have a new hospital planned. It's been agreed by government, and government's gone to a government department for planning, and they've said no. Well, I can't understand how that works myself. And what we need is, we've got great people in the health service. What we need is the buildings to accommodate all the services that we need to offer our people, young and old, and sick, mentally sick with a broken leg. It's all sickness, and we need the facilities, because we're going to have a lot more people, as people like myself get older, that are going to need all kinds of care. And if we don't get this building organised and built, and you know, there's been £28 million put in there so far without a brick in the ground. We've got to do it. And I'm a doer. I'd like your vote.
I had a constituent in Orchard House at St Saviour's. I've never been to such an awful place in my life. It was worse than boarding school, I'll tell you. But they're talking about spending 42 million on developing Overdale for the mental health services. And you know, we need to just check on their estimates on that, because you know, we've got 466 million for the hospital, 250 million to repay for housing, 75 million is going into the sewage works. You know, and where's the money coming from? When you've qualified and you're working, it'll be your taxes. One thing about having a mental health set up at Overdale, we need not only to keep adults and children separate, but we also need to keep the dementia people away from the adult mental health people. There are, at the moment, good facilities at St Saviour's for the dementia and Alzheimer's cases, but obviously, is my time up? Can't I weasel another minute?
I'm going to buck the trend here and say that what we really need to do to help mental health is we need to put more care into the community. That's for two reasons. One is we are social creatures. That means that socializing actually benefits those people with mental health issues. If they're cut off and they're stuck in a hospital, they don't get that. The second thing is that mental health affects the whole family. If it may, you know, one person may have it, but everyone suffers. So we need to think about how we need to sort these problems in our community rather than worry about locking them away. Yes, we do need a facility for extreme cases where it's to their benefit to keep them under 24-hour care. But that shouldn't be our first port of call. The community should be the first port.
Thank you. Well, you've heard that plans are underway to improve the facilities and build a new mental health facility at Overdale. And I would certainly push to see that the money is found for that, because it's absolutely vital. But as well as facilities, you need people to run them and to run the services that actually help people. So it's absolutely essential that we have more training and also key worker accommodation, so that people who are here and working in these critical services have the means to have a good life and somewhere proper to live. That's why I've also, in my time at Home Affairs, invested in a new perinatal mental health service for parents who require help in the very early stages of a child's life. That service will be starting soon. And also police officers to be trained to deal with people who are experiencing mental health crises. It's an absolutely critical part of our island life, and everybody's well-being is essential. Thank you.
Okay, so mental health, I think you need to take a completely holistic approach from this. Yes, the building is important, but at the beginning of the term, the States Assembly need to determine what to do with their state's assets and find the most appropriate location, the most humane location for those people to reside when they need the support. In terms of people, I stated before, we need to ensure we can recruit and we can skill, but also provide a proper employment offering for those wages and the benefits that go around those and the home so that they've got somewhere to live. As part of prevention, I mean, 75% in the mental health quality report, 75% of mental health issues start before the age of 18. So there needs to be work-based support programs for families as well, people who are suffering at home that have to go to work the next day but need that support within the work setting. Create support networks amongst family, friends, within youth workers, and education to break down the stigma that's held within society. And I can't go on anymore because that's me up, so thank you.
A lot of us here will probably be looking to go to university, and it's really important to us to know that we can come back and live a happy life in Jersey. So what do you propose you do to welcome students back to the island, maybe focusing on affordable housing? What do you plan to put in place for that?
Right. Of course, affordable housing is a big problem here, but notice sitting states members behind, you know, don't forget they've been in the driving seat, many of them, for, you know, quite a few years, mental health problems, all the other problems. You know, you shouldn't be having those problems. They failed you, basically. Now, Dan, when it comes to the price of homes, the only big lever there is Andium Homes. They have to not sell their property, but build them and make the rents affordable to people on lower incomes. It's simple as that. It's a political decision. Don't ask £1,200 a month, ask £600 a month. Peg the figure down so you've got somewhere to live. It's a political, it's the only thing that will pull the private market down. What was the other issue just that you were? Welcome back. Well, that is, whoa. It's like make it an island that not only you would want to come back to, but the whole world would want to come back to. Now, there's a big question. It would take me a long time to answer that one. I haven't got the time.
The island of Jersey have given you the benefit of a good education, and with the benefit of a good education, they also want to give you the ability to have further education and go to university, and that should be welcomed. And if you then go to university and you get your degree, obviously you're going to be very, very welcome back in the island. We want people who have been educated and have got certain qualifications in certain areas, so you will be welcomed back big time. As it comes to housing, unfortunately the supply cannot meet the demand. It never has done. I'm in the business of the property. It never has done and it never will do. And that's a problem that we have living in an island 9x5. Yes, we have to have states housing. Hopefully with your degree you will have a good salary and hopefully we can provide you with a house, but that's a problem that won't go away. But do come back, we want you. Thank you very much.
One of the things that we're going to do with the new higher education funding is not in a big brother way, but keep in touch with you so that you know what's happening here. One of the things that new employers and investors, when they come to Jersey, say to us is we really want to keep in touch with local graduates that are going off the island to get their degree. And so we're going to firm up that process so that we will keep in touch with you. You will be keeping in touch with us. You'll know what's available, and employers will be able to contact you as well, helpfully helping you to make the decision to come back. You also asked about affordable housing. That's one of the commitments that I've given over the last week in my manifesto as well, that within, if you vote for me and I'm re-elected, within 6 weeks I will create an affordable housing commission that will report by the end of this year. Their remit will be to drive down costs and to increase supply, and that will involve the whole of the community. Thank you.
For the last 20 years, I've been a trustee of a housing trust which deals with social housing rather than rental housing, affordable housing. It gives me a degree of insight, I guess. I suppose in terms of actual schemes, I'd like to see a modern equivalent to what we used to call the state's loan scheme. That's about making the financing more affordable, but it's also about dampening down demand, because the greater the demand, the higher the prices get pushed up in the market. Part of that is around population. We've let in 4,200 people in the last 4 years when we should let in 1,300. There's also an issue around what we call external buy-to-let, which is people buying flats who are from off-island. In fact, anecdotally, I was told that that's even happening within a states-funded scheme at the moment, and people are making a £40,000 markup now, and that's not acceptable. We've also been told anecdotally, same entity might be selling 70% of the flats it's just built to off-island buyers, and that should be very easy to stop. After that, release some of the state's-owned brownfield sites for affordable housing, and also do some test sites for construction to see if we can actually get the building costs down. It's a package at the end of the day, and that's only part of it. Thanks.
Thank you for that question. As I alluded in my opening speech, I think we need to make sure our economy stays strong and robust. So we are creating the jobs and career opportunities for you to come back to. I also touched on affordable housing. And we need to make sure that housing, if you can borrow 3 or 4 or 5 times your salary, you can buy a starter home for that sort of money. Or we have to make sure you can get 100% mortgages or provide deposit loans. We also have to invest in our infrastructure, because I know it sounds a long way off to you now, but you're going to want, as you get older, good health services. You're going to want good education for your children. And we need to, I studied in London. I left Jersey, I went to study in London, and I spent 4 years there, and it was an important 4 years of my life. But after 2 or 3 months there, I realized just how lucky we all are to live in Jersey. And I couldn't wait. I remember one particular, well, many times being crammed into the tube station in the middle of the summer, wishing I was on Swan's Beach. So never lose the fact that you live in a beautiful and special island, and I hope you all want to come back to it. We want to make it easy for you to do that. Thanks.
I think it's a very good question. How do we encourage students, postgraduates, to return to Jersey? Well, most of them actually don't return for at least 10 years, because once you've got your postgraduate, once you've worked hard, you want to go off round the world. You want to follow your career wherever it takes you. But when you do return, and hopefully you will, is there such a thing as affordable housing? No, there isn't at the moment for most people. How do we get around that? Government owns land and government owns a development company. Surely joined up thinking says we can actually build small-scale affordable home developments that are for first-time buyers, remain for first-time buyers always. The whole profit issue is taken out of the equation. We offer as a government shared equity or deposit loan schemes, but we make sure that students or people returning to the island can have a home for their family, at least their first home. And that's important, because otherwise people won't come back to the island. Thank you.
I believe I may be the only candidate who has a section on this in her manifesto, because I was disturbed by stories of people from Jersey who had left the island, got qualified, spent some time in the UK, came back to apply for jobs in Jersey, and they refused in favour of people who were brought in from the UK. Every time somebody is brought into the UK, that may well mean another house is going to be used up that could be accommodating the local population. And I'm still concerned because there are some proposals on the table to improve immigration when our population did jump by 10% in the last 10 years, which hasn't helped the cost of housing one bit. And this proposal is really focusing on the low-paid market in terms of work permits. And in my manifesto, I'm saying we need to go more than that. We need to actually really invest in the individual career paths, your career paths, so that we can be sure that you do have jobs in the future. That means looking at what those future jobs will be and ensuring that you have the skills, the mentoring to actually match the jobs as they arrive. The affordable housing, we need a better island plan that supports that. But my background is as a chairman of the St Brelade's Bay Association. I know about the island plan, I know about her regulation, so I'm your woman.
If young people are going to come back to Jersey, they have to feel like they have a bright future here. I went to university in London, and a large number of my friends who came from Jersey have stayed in the UK, and it is the cost of housing that put them off because they saw the prospect of coming back and living in their parents' homes, all the arguments and everything that goes along with that. And when the rents and regulation in many parts of the UK is better than Jersey, they simply felt like it was the better option for them. So rents in Jersey are extortionate. The cost of a mortgage is too much. And that is because we have a housing market that works for investors. It's not a market that works for people who need a home. That's got to change. And I think what we need to look at is actually regulating the market to stamp out the bad practices that are adopted by some landlords. Do you know, at the last census, there were 3,000 empty properties in the island. 3,000. Now imagine what we would do to the market and the improvements to access to housing we could make if we got a proportion of those properties back on the market. We have to say to wealthy investors who are hoarding properties, they must stop because those properties ought to go to young Jersey families who want a bright future here.
The housing problem is government's fault again, because government doesn't do anything about it. One of the first things government must do is allocate land for appropriate large and small houses and apartment sites required. No sites, no housing. 2, government must provide a low initial deposit purchase scheme for first-time buyers. 3, government must provide a mortgage payment scheme to fit the buyer's income and or appropriate tax breaks. 4, government must do shared equity schemes so that people get on the housing ladder. 5, government must remove user pays planning charges from planning application. If user pay stays, it must be on approved planning applications only. The planning department gets money every time it says no to your new homes. There's a million no opportunities in every planning application. And I hope just the wonderful island that we have will be enough to welcome you home, because it's a great, wonderful place. Thank you.
Yes, there are 2 problems with coming home. One is the housing problem, which everyone's been talking about, and the other is the attitude of employers, because we want locals in jobs, and some of the employers, particularly the medical field, the hospital, health services, they're very poor at welcoming back people who have qualified in various specialties. Now, I know James Reed wanted to have a web page of job opportunities set up so that students could access it in their sort of 3rd and 4th year, depending how long their degrees were or how long their courses were, so that you would know what jobs were available, you would know what the sort of salaries are, and you can start looking to see whether you can actually afford to come home or whether you want to go further afield. Because I do agree with Simon. You know, go and get experience elsewhere in the world. I suppose one could say, go and make your mistakes on other people before you come home. Okay, thank you.
The biggest problem most students have is they have to make a choice between pursuing their career or coming back, because there are so few opportunities and so few careers over here that are available on this island. If you want to be a forestry ranger or a biochemist, there's no opportunities over here. So you have to decide whether or not to give up your career that you're pursuing and come back, or go with somewhere else. But if you decide to come back, there is this problem of affordable housing. Now, my own opinion is that there's no such thing as affordable housing, and there never will be until we have an affordable market. Because no matter what you do about making some kind of entry position into buying a house, if you keep that static and the rest of the market grows, you're going to be stuck in that house forever. And if that house then no longer becomes useful to you because, say, it's only one bedroom and you want to then develop a family, you're then stuck. So you can't just provide affordable housing. You've got to look at the whole market and fix the whole damn thing. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Essentially, when you return to Jersey, and I hope that you all will want to do that in the future, it's essential that there are interesting jobs so that you can have a meaningful career here that will be fulfilling for you and for your family. That's why I support the strengthening of our economy, the seeking out of opportunities in the rapidly changing world, such as fintech, and also looking at creative industries and what else we can do for Jersey. But as well as being able to find an affordable home, and I do support the building of affordable homes and parish plans like the one that was proposed for St. Peter, that would have been done in conjunction with the parish to help bring down the cost of those homes. We also want to look after and protect our beautiful environment so that you have a nice and safe environment for your family to grow up in. That's why we need to look at the soil quality, the air quality, and ideas that will help to improve all of those things, such as organic farming and the use of electric cars. Thank you.
Okay, in terms of returning back after university, I'll tackle the housing one first. I'd like to look at freeing up states' land, states-owned land, and brownfield sites, and focus on those at the first in order to build more supply, but also to look at modular building to reduce the cost of those builds. I'd like to look at addressing the rentals and asking whoever the new Treasury Minister is to revisit the property transaction review. And I believe, in terms of other things that students may want to look at if they return or when they want to return, is the innovation within the island in terms of investment in arts and culture and diversifying within areas that aren't just finance or digital or in particular industries that are high on Jersey's level, but also to ensure that anyone that returns and wants to work in the public sector are provided with the right wage, the right support, and reflects the value of their work.
Okay, well, first of all, we don't want you to go away in the first place. And if a facility is here for a university, you don't have to go away. Now, when we're talking about affordable housing, as you've heard from my colleagues, there is no such thing. To get on the property ladder, I would suggest getting yourselves an apartment to start with. Because like a car, there are running costs with places that you have to cover. And those things are, you know, it's okay getting a mortgage, but if there's a problem with a property, like a roof or something like that, you can't work out a payment plan with these people on a monthly basis. They want the money up front. And if you're talking about a roof, for example, it's £35,000. So if you haven't got that backing behind you, you've got problems. Thank you very much.
Coming back to Jersey, well, until we diversify the economy, which successive states have failed to do over a period of time, unless you intend going to the finance industry, then I'm afraid the employment opportunities are certainly going to remain low in the foreseeable future. I know my 2 children graduated from university and had to go to the United Kingdom to find work. Affordable housing, this will not occur until we limit immigration, because every time somebody comes to the island, obviously they require accommodation. So demand always outstrips supply. The only way I can think of resolving this in this present climate is to create houses people can afford with shared equity. It's common in the United Kingdom. The states will own the land, you own the house. That'll knock £200,000 off the price for a start. But let's also ensure, whilst we're at it, that the houses are homes, and not tiny flats crammed together that will only cause future social problems. Thank you.
If we don't provide sufficient affordable housing for young people, I think they'll always think twice about returning to Jersey. My daughter was a perfect example. It was 7 or 8 years before she came back to the island. Fortunately, her boyfriend had a small flat in London, which gave them a deposit when they came back here. But many of you won't be in that position. I've got it in my manifesto around we do need to build affordable housing. I've suggested 500 as a matter of urgency. Maximum price sort of £300,000, but it's going to be around land cost. We've got to move away from the times when people made vast sums of money selling land at extortionate prices in Jersey. States have to acquire it at a reasonable price and it'll bring the cost down. We can do it through modern modular build. We can build at a low cost. But we do need to any first-time buyer homes we build, they need to stay first-time buyer homes in perpetuity. They need to stay first-time buyer homes forever. Otherwise, you lose them to the market and the next generation don't have an opportunity to get their foot on the ladder. The parish built some at Lemoy. They were a godsend to those that live in them through shared equity. So we do need more affordable housing in the island. Thank you.
And then what we're going to do is any questions we don't... Look at all the hands, I feel really bad now. Any question we don't take, we'll ask you to put it down on some Post-its at the back of the hall tonight. And what we'll do, we'll get it written up and we'll email it out to candidates. And then if they wish to answer your questions, we can always post that on our Facebook pages. I don't know where to go. I'm going to go...
What can you do to help young carers on the island?
So that was a question about young carers in the island. And we'll start with Mr. Fondre.
I know there is an issue. There's a lot of unrecognised benefits, the wrong expression, but there's no recognition of what young carers do for when they are looking after, whether it's siblings or elderly parents. So, especially being first up, I don't have a great experience of the issue. I think it ties into what we've been talking about mental health issues as well, in terms of we need to understand what the positions are, what the problems are, speak to you more properly, and then see what we can do. That's all I can say on the matter, I'm afraid. Sorry.
There's a minute's just not long enough, and I think it's difficult for those of us who haven't had to be carers to understand just how difficult and challenging it must be for these people. They are absolutely, they're really champions of our society and our community. But again, I think it's just about resources, and we haven't. We're learning now, and I think the Independent Care Inquiry has unearthed a lot of issues that we're learning from. So again, I'm going to say we have to work harder to understand the issues, and we have to ask I think the young carers and all the carers have to be not asking us what we're going to do. Carers come and tell us what we can do for them, and we have to respond, and we have to act, and we have to look after them, and we have to appreciate them for what they are and what they do for society. They really are champions. Sorry, I can't say more than that in a minute. Thank you.
1 minute is really not long enough, is it? What's the first thing we can do to help young carers? I think appreciate them. Appreciate the hard work they do. Appreciate the valued work they do. The other area is a severe lack of respite care. We do not have sufficient adult respite care that will give the young carers time off from actually trying to care for their loved ones. That is a big problem. Government could do something about it very quickly. I think we need to look at more ways in which we can support young carers in the home through totally free services. But the young carers need to tell us what you need, what will help you. We can then put that in place because there is a lack of support. So there's a lack of appreciation, a lack of respite care, and a lack of support. And I think young carers today do so much hard work that goes completely unrecognised. And that's wrong. Thank you.
Yeah, this is something I've been discussing with local charities because there is a carer charter that is out there, and I believe that that's being discussed with members of the states, or certainly the council ministers even now. And part of the concern is to produce respite care homes, which would be part of an overall, ideally part of an overall health and care strategy, which I've mentioned before. To really give the support to young carers, you need better coordination between the government and charities as well, which is in my manifesto. When it comes back to this whole thing about policies, we do have a problem with them being recognised as defective because they've been produced in little departments by themselves. So I'm hot on the trail of improving all of those. Thank you.
Well, carers of all ages aren't valued enough in Jersey. And just think of the amount of money that the state saves when people care for members of their family without professional help. I think that is not recognised anywhere near as much as it should be, and I've personally worked with some constituents with the social security system, which has not been particularly helpful for them and has left a lot of these people actually living on very low incomes, and I don't think that that is acceptable. You should not be living in relative poverty because you're having to care for a member of your family, no matter what age you are. That's issue number one. We do not accept that as an inevitability. I think that in the aftermath of the independent care inquiry, all of the issues surrounding this needs to be a priority for the next government of Jersey, and that's something I'm particularly keen to have pushed up to the top of the agenda. But the voice of young carers must be heard in government. That means having some sort of liaison with a government minister or assistant minister who can be the voice for those people to make sure that all government services are responding to the needs of those people. When they require extra help, they must be able to get it, and we must not tolerate cuts to any of these services whatsoever.
Young carers do an amazing job. It's very, very difficult for them. And, you know, if you're a young carer, I can understand that sometimes you feel your family are like a burden on yourself, and you just have to keep going and do this work because you love them and you care about them. And that is one of the most difficult situations when you're not getting support from the government, not getting support from services, and nobody's appreciating what you do, and nobody gives you a break from it. And we need to look very strongly at how we address this situation, because you are doing amazing work. It's saving the government money. It's just painful when you have to do this and nobody appreciates you. So we've got to get an awareness for you of what you do and help you financially and with other services to help you get on better.
Right, I think the biggest and most important thing is actually asking for help. The sort of initial problem, I would have thought, is getting schoolwork done as well as getting your caring done. And if the people, if your teachers don't know that you're actually coping with caring, you know, it's going to be much more difficult. One of the biggest problems for all carers is getting respite care and support. And obviously another problem is that of money. If you ask for help, then somebody will be able to point you in the direction of getting the money. These problems actually are similar to those for older carers, for parents caring for children. You know, the actual problems for all carers are similar. I looked after my mother at home, and, you know, by the time you've juggled the day job and the money and the getting respite, getting people in during the holidays and so on, and I think the same for the young carers. Are you a young carer? Yes, tough. And, you know, there is a very good carers association. If you'd like to have a word with me afterwards.
I personally think that when the care of an individual falls on a young person, that there's been a massive failure in our society. There are home nursing facilities available through people like family and nursing and home care, and people like this who can provide services. They're not very extensive, simply because there is a simple lack of money. Can this problem be solved by simply just throwing a bag of money at it? Well, it will certainly help. But the question we must ask is, why are we allowing these young carers to care on their own? What's going on with our society when we do that?
First off, recognition is the most important thing, the knowledge that it's important that it's known who is caring in the community and who needs that support. Respite, as everybody has alluded to, I think is essential both overnight out of the home and also in the home too. But then practical support for carers, I can imagine there's an inordinate amount of things that you might need, and other carers in a similar situation. That's why I really think that community hubs are going to be a great thing for our community, to offer help to both young and old people, to bring people together and join up services. Also, I imagine that homework and transport might pose difficulties, and so there's an amount of listening so that we can understand what is needed, and an effort to join up those needs. Thank you.
Without having to repeat everybody else, but there was a recent long-term care review done about the issues of respite in Jersey, and we really need to start investing in respite properly right across the board, not just for young carers, but all carers. And we need to recognise the value of caring in our community and how important it is to society. But we also need to work hand in hand with the youth service, who also provides some very good support and assistance with some young carers, and with the Voice Project. So we need to be listening and understanding what's coming through from the youth of our island, so that we can put in proper policies to support them. In terms of people who are having to access our social security system, it causes more stress than what it's worth sometimes, and we need to resolve all the issues around the carers allowance, around the components on income support, to ensure that we're providing a proper, affordable situation for people that are accessing those particular schemes, but also having some form of support for the young carer during their life, in terms of homework or schoolwork and their family difficulties they may go through.
Young carers are unsung heroes. The frustration that you must suffer when you're trying to find the person who you can deal with, or a department you can deal with, and I think that's down to government. Now, You've got to tell us what you need, and when we ascertain what we can do for you, then we can tie things up with government department. I don't mean going to Social Security, I mean a department that's designated for sorting this out from start to finish and supporting you. Thank you very much.
Now, this is another question going back to my opening remarks about what you do, but I'll do my best. I was a carer once. Trying to be a states member and look after my chair-bound mother, it actually made me seriously ill, because the stress for those who haven't done it is unimaginable. But the question is about young carers, and I really find it difficult to imagine how a young carer would cope. I mean, they must, first of all, they must be appreciated by the community, because it is a very lonely job. There must be easy access to respite, where you can get a break, because the work is both physically and emotionally draining. But above all, the carer needs support, not only from friends, but the medical profession as well. People like the nursing services that visit would take some of the strain off. That's all I can say. It's not an easy job.
It's an issue that's very close to my heart. My eldest son's severely disabled. He's now 36 and he's in care at Les Amis. But for many years he lived at home, and my daughter, as she grew up, was a great support to both myself and my wife. Gave us a little bit more free time. But it was important that she felt loved and supported all the way through that. I think she did. And it's important she didn't miss out on the normal things, and I don't think she did miss out. But I mentioned it when she got married, and she didn't realise how much support she'd been through that particular period of time. But if you're giving greater support, I think we must provide sufficient respite care, respite opportunities. That's really important. It's been a huge problem going back to when I had a young family, when I didn't think we got enough support, although there was some respite at the time. There's no adult respite care. That's simply not good enough. I think carers save the taxpayer huge amounts of money, and frankly, we need to support them more in what they do and appreciate the time and effort that they give. Thank you.
Very hard work, caring. It probably wouldn't be my cup of tea. You need amazing patience. But the question, of course, is resources. And I know in that profession you absolutely need respite. You know, you need to get away. Can be quite an exhausting job. So it's a question of resources, really. And so as everything is intrinsically linked, the resources are a little bit slow in coming because government isn't very efficient. It wastes millions of pounds of your money simply because, although you've got the internet, you haven't asked us to, or asked them to make every penny accountable. You could do that, right? Your mothers and fathers could do that. I've been offering you that for 15, 20 years. And you just tow them in, make them absolutely accountable, and there's more money to go round. And you simply have to have politicians who care. That's it, care.
Firstly, you are to be commended for being a carer, and my thoughts are with you. A very difficult position to be in as a young person. But as I said to you previously, I want to work for a listening state chamber that puts Islanders first. And that's the very reason I'm here, born-again politician. It's for you as a carer to go to the government. The government is a very awkward, lumpy object. You are at the sharp end. It is for you to have the ability to reach somebody within government and tell them what you as a carer and fellow carers need. And it is for government to listen to you. And thank you for what you're doing. So basically, it's communication again. It all comes back to communication. Thank you.
as other candidates have said, we are grateful for the caring that you personally do. Hopefully, as Sarah mentioned, you're aware of the Jersey Carers Association and the good work, and seeing that you're not, we will certainly make sure through Mark that you become aware of that, because they have developed a carers strategy. I was involved in supporting them developing that carer strategy. They are now working together with my department on legal recognition for carers. In my manifesto, I raised that as an issue because of all the good suggestions and ideas that we've rightly heard this evening. Underpinning that is a need for legal recognition for carers. And until we get that legal recognition for carers, we've been looking to see how carers are supported elsewhere in the world. When we get that legal recognition, then the other elements of need that carers need to do their work will follow. So they're on the case, and I hope we can link you up with them, because I think that will help. Thank you.